The mic is on.
The mic's on.
If you want it.
Well,
You might
they're
need it.
recording.
No, I'm just saying you might need it.
Oh, okay, we'll see. Tell me if you can't hear me. All right. We are the human components of Armstead Mountain Farm. We've been together for 25 years, farming in Polk County, which is about 1 hour and 45 minutes from Little Rock, okay? And we are 11 miles on a dirt road north of Jerusalem, Arkansas, if you've ever heard of that. And as I said, we've been farming together for 25 years. Between us, we have 5 children from previous marriages. And they all worked on the farm with us at various times. And from that, I'll hand it over to the Speaker of the House. You'll find out he is the Speaker of the House.
Not really.
And he'll give you the background of how we actually got to Arkansas, and then I will do my part to try and let you know why I'm here.
Okay, our history together, we've been together for 25 years, but both of our histories in Arkansas go back a little further. This year was 40 years for me. I came in 1972, part of the early Back to the Land movement. We came from Michigan, 11 people and 3 vehicles. We were going to set up a commune. We were going to go live the good life. We were going to get independent and self-sustaining. And that was the big thing. We read Mother Earth News #1 and went from there. Yeah, that'll be okay. My first wife and I had gone up to Nova Scotia, and we had friends up there that had bought a farm. And I looked at their wood pile. I said, wow, that's a big pile of wood. And they said, yeah, that's what we had left over. And I go, okay. We had been looking in United Farm Realty Company and different places in Arkansas kept poking up. And we looked on population density maps, and there was a big hole up there in the Ozarks, and there was cheap land, longer growing season. You know, I was born in Ohio, but raised in Michigan. Sue's from Ohio, and we were looking for that longer growing season. So we came down, and at the time, one friend of ours had been to another commune up there, probably one of the first ones that was set up in No-Go, Arkansas. And so we got to Fayetteville, our 3-vehicle little caravan, and we drove all day long. Highway 16 from outside Fayetteville at that time was dirt road all the way past Allred. So we took most of the day, and it was getting dark, and we pull into this driveway, and the guy goes, I think this is it. And I said, you're kidding me. It was a 2-track going off into the woods, and it was this other place where he knew he had visited the year before. And I said, you sure this is it? He said, check the mailbox, you know. And I went over and checked the mailbox, and it said, Ganja Doobie Boogie Plantation. And I go, well, this is, and yes, this was just, you know, 60s, early 70s. I was at Woodstock, actually. So the admissions come out. So we went back in there, and there were 30 people living there, and we stayed there for 6 weeks, 11 of us, and it started, you know, the realities of life in the deep country started sinking into some people, and by the time we bought our land, we had 6 people. But all our friends from Ann Arbor, where I came from, cycled through, and slowly but surely, it whittled down to me and my wife, actually, and then we had some other people move in. One of them's in the audience here. And for 5 years, we did live with other people. During that initial period, my parents died early. I got an inheritance enough to buy some registered Suffolk draft horses. And for first 14 years, I was on the farm. We used only horses. We raised 90-some% of our food, not the cooking oil, but even planted wheat and bought an old combine that was tractor pulled and had the neighbor come and combine our wheat, so we had our own bread.
Sorghum.
And we made our own sorghum. We were doing a lot of different things. No electricity that whole time, kerosene lamps, and then propane, and then we finally got 12-volt system up. We had a wind generator. And we, you know, it was challenging, but a good life. It was hard. Most of the people that came and visited were urban people and our friends, and they kind of thought, oh, go live the good life in the country, and we can sit on the porch and watch things grow. Well, it wasn't quite like that. We had 30 acres of old fields that had been abandoned for 35 years. They said they grew cotton until it just would not grow on that land. And they called it bumblebee cotton. It was knee-high to a bumblebee, and the cotton was about the size of a bumblebee. And so we probably cleaned out all the neighborhood barns, hauling a lot of compost and everything. Slowly but surely built land up. Here I'm just getting on a cover crop with a stallion and 2 mares and one of their babies. So that's an early shot. And so after 14 years, changes were happening. I went through a divorce. Sue went through a divorce, and she came a few years later than I. And you
75.
so you can kind of give a little history up to where we're together on your point.
Change the.
Can
I
we?
believe.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
there she is.
On.
This wasn't yesterday.
As you can see. Okay, so I'm curious, just to begin with, how many people here are actually thinking about farming or doing gardening, say?
Or are farming,
Or are farming.
Oh.
So we're kind of speaking to the choir in some ways. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
my voice carries. I don't think yours does.
All right. So I was born and raised in Ohio, and with my husband and 2 children, we moved to San Diego. He was a project manager for some real estate development projects, and we were kind of hit by that cosmic back to the land movement, and we decided we'd move out into the country out east of San Diego and give it a try and see if it suited us. And we rented a little 8-acre ranch and had horses, put in my first garden, which was an utter disaster. I'm telling you, don't ever try and grow in decomposed granite. It doesn't work. But that did not stymie my desire to be in the country and grow food, provide food for our family. And after 2 years, we decided to make the big move. I came to Arkansas to check it out. We had a friend here, and my little 5-year-old son and I came to give it a look because we had checked a lot of the land catalogs, and Arkansas land was very reasonable, very cheap. We bought our land, 80 acres, for $24,000 at that time.
Which land had gone up in those 3 years. We paid $130 an acre for our place when we bought it. And 2 years before that, it had sold for $75 an acre. So,
yeah, that was a big draw, you know, and taxes were low. Where we were in San Diego, out in the country, taxes were extremely high, and of course the land was in the thousands of dollars an acre. So we knew we needed to look elsewhere. So I come to Arkansas, and I was captivated. I was immediately drawn to the people and the culture. I mean, you drive down the road, dirt road probably, or even not a dirt road, and people would wave at you. You've never ever met them. You have no idea who they are. They wave, you know, and I'm coming across 16. At that time, it's a road that goes from like Clinton. Yeah, it's dirt. But you got to stop for the pig, you know, to cross the road. So anyway, this all really appealed to me. And being a little bit of a rebel, and my husband was an adventuresome guy, we decided we're going to get out. And also, we were reading a lot about Back to the Land, and especially influenced by Helen and Scott Nearing, who homesteaded in Maine, built up their place by hand, rock house and rock walls around their garden, grew almost all their own food, and they were great advocates of living the good life, the simple life. They were going to work 4 hours a day, read and write for 4 hours a day, and then pursue their various hobbies, music, whatever, 4 hours a day. Well, it really didn't work out that way. It's more like 16 hours a day of farm labor, but that's okay. We found that out. And of course, they wrote books. And we do have a list of reading material that might be helpful if you're thinking about farming or even gardening. And their book was Living the Good Life. So they made quite a bit of money on publishing books as well. So anyway, we decided to raise blueberries. The University of Arkansas was promoting that as a means of farming and a way to make money. And we put in 2 acres, about 2,000 plants, and it did not really produce the yields that were projected to produce. And, but we did make a living at it for a while. It required a lot of labor. And in fact, the last year we were in production was 98, 97. We had to hire 35 people through the season. They were filtering in and out, in and out. Whereas in the beginning, we had a lot of older people, neighbors, that loved to pick fruit. They had been migrant workers, whatever. But by the end of the 10 years in the blueberries, we were hiring a lot of teenagers. We called it teenage daycare. And they would pick a couple of buckets and sit on the porch. And we really found out quite early, neither one of us are like the role of boss. You know, we're more hands-on people, we can do it type people. So anyway, we did give up the blueberry farm and actually sold it and moved to Rusty's Place, which is another 80 acres, and surrounded by the National Forest, the Ozark National Forest. And in fact, it has a dirt road trail around the Armstead Mountain that we found out one day when we were looking at a forest map that the forest had named it Rusty Road. So he'd been there long enough that he had a road. He has this old...
Yeah, now Sue's original blueberry patch was one of the first organic blueberry patches in the States. And at that time, there wasn't southern high bush. There weren't blueberries in Florida. So blueberry marketing was really, we were the first to come on the market. So I spent about 10 years over there in the blueberries with Sue. And then one day I was at my place, which was 5 miles on the road, came home on the tractor, no suspension on the tractor. The road was rough. I said, we ought to move back to my old place. And she said, okay, let's do it, just like that. So,
you had to sign a piece of paper.
Yeah, she made me sign a piece of paper. We're moving. But we actually, this PowerPoint was for, we originally made for the Southern Sod Conference last year, and it's probably going to get a little lengthy, and I know we probably want to hear some questions and have some conversation here.
Yeah.
So I think we should...
We're going to run through
along.
it pretty quickly.
Oops, what happened
backwards. Did you go back?
There it goes. No.
Yeah. This is an overview. We have a windmill which pumps water, gravity feed to the house, but we also have electricity now, so we have...
That's me right there climbing the windmill tower, taking that picture. So we'll whip through some of these. This is another shot off the windmill. And one was off that direction. This is here. This is row cover here. We're starting spring seeds. There's spring plants in.
Very valuable material for protecting
It's a real lightweight
crops.
spun bond polyester material. We get a couple seasons out of it if we're careful. But it will keep the moisture in the soil for small seeds to germinate. Also keeps the insects off that crop. And a lot of times with eggplant or something like that, we'll put hoops up and put that over, and we'll keep the eggplant under there until they start blooming. If it's an insect pollinated crop, we got to take it off. But
wind protection as well.
Yeah, and slight frost protection. Here's another shot completing the circle. That's the house. Here's back in the blueberries. That's not a great shot. It's obviously the middles need bush hogging pretty bad, but once the blueberries started ripening, you couldn't get close to them too much or you'd be knocking off a lot of berries. Compost, we've always, really believe in compost. One of the books that's recommended on here, there's seed sources and a few other things, but is Soul of the Soil. And that's a great little look at the microbiology of the soil, which is one of the differences between conventional farming and organic farming. Organic farming is talking about the life in the soil, and conventional farming is just feeding the plant. So we feed the soil, and it's all getting, everybody's, all farmers, though, are picking up techniques from both sides of this equation. And that's at times beneficial, at times not. A nation that destroys its soils destroys itself. And I think we have quite a bit we could talk about the destruction of our soil. Here's another shot, some compost. And we don't have any horses now, and so we have about 20 acres to mow. And I mow it, we bale it, and we pile it up. And we let it rot. So I'm actually, just like a lot of cattle farmers, I'm a grass farmer. But it's not going through the cow first, and they don't get their part. We have considered integrating livestock into our farm, and we go back and forth all the time. We had dairy goats early on for our milk. There's the manure spreader. Disking in a cover crop, another essential part of organic farming is building your organic matter in the soil. In the South, with high humidity, high temperatures, a long season, the microbiological activity in the soil continues for a long time, and that's eating up your organic matter the whole time. Some other professional growers at the Southern Sod Conference last year said they have given up even testing for organic matter because it's so hard to build in the South. It's an interesting point, though, as far as global warming and carbon in the atmosphere. I read a statistics that if all the agricultural soil in the world was raised 1% in organic matter, we would capture enough carbon in the soil to solve our problem. And that's pretty amazing. But that's the whole world, too, getting everybody to start growing cover crops and turning them under.
As it is now, we're losing 3% of our soil.
We're losing, in the United States, 3% of the
US,
topsoil is gone. There's some rye, and shows the height of it. We didn't have our tallest person out there to demonstrate the height.
Rusty, is that your cover crop there, the rye?
Yeah,
You're just going to turn that under and leave it?
we're going to turn
first,
that.
didn't you?
Yeah, and the buckwheat, same thing. That's buckwheat there. And it's blooming. We let it bloom for a while for the local bee population. They love that. It's great. And there is a real problem with bees now. You've probably heard that. So the rye, if we want more quickly available nutrition for the plants, we will turn it in when it's probably only knee-high and mostly leaf. But if we are trying to build higher organic matter, longer lasting organic matter, won't rot down as fast, the stems and everything, that provides more humus in the soil.
Maybe
There's
we should
another
flick through a
cover
little
crop
faster,
on fall beds.
You know? Maybe flick through a little faster.
Okay, yeah, I'll keep moving. That is actually, it was a cover crop of fall planted oats. And there was crimson clover in there too. The oats winter kill if we get a cold enough winter. Last winter, a lot of oats lived through. It was unusual, but it does happen. And so then you don't have as much green biomass to deal with in the spring. It holds the soil all winter really well. Now we had crimson clover that came on it was in this field or the one next to it. That was beautiful in the spring. This is just this is the way we prepare beds. We don't have a bedder, so we use the tools that we have. We're not highly equipped with tools, but I'm using the middle buster to plow out the centers. There's the middle busters. Then I turn the back disc one way, and that heaps it up. And there's showing the back discs are turned, the front ones are straight. And then I put some old sickle knives on the back of the rototiller, and that lays off 7 rows on each bed after I till each of those beds. We may plant only that center row. We overmark the beds, but some lettuce, greens, carrots, beets, spinach sometimes. We'll sow on this, and those are only 6 inches apart, those rows. So we can do foot apart, or we can do 18 inches apart. So we grow our own transplants to be certified organic, and we became certified. We were certified organic. We were some of the first in the state. We helped develop the first certification program in the state, done by Ozark Small Farm Viability Project, which we were members of. And when we started going to the river market, right after that, the USDA took over organic certification. And when that first happened, oh my gosh, the record keeping was going to be outrageous. It was set up really for bigger farmers. You got 40 acres of one crop, it's pretty easy to keep track of what you do to that 40 acres. We were growing 100 different varieties during a year, and every one of them, and we would replant in a bed, and so, you know, we're only planting 20 feet of something in a bed, and then when that's out, we plant something else, and if you add a little compost, everything had to be written down. Well, since then, the organic certification process has loosened up a little bit. We get certified by Oklahoma, the state of Oklahoma now. But we went to the river market for 10 years, and we had a rapport with people. We could tell people what we were doing and answer any questions. And so we felt like we really didn't need to put that extra energy into. We had some other growers figure out how long it would take to do that record keeping, and they figured an extra 100 hours of work a year. And that's 100 hours of work of paperwork, you know? And that wasn't really where we wanted to be at. Now we have to do some record keeping, but it's not as intense. They've kind of loosened things up. Compost, if you use an animal manure in organics, it has to be 180 days, if it's fresh, before a root crop, and 120 days before an above ground crop. And you have to monitor your compost piles, you have to take temperatures, there's all these record keeping things. But now when we're composting our hay with no animal manure, we just call it rotted hay. And if you don't use that compost word when you get certified, it helps solve some of the problem. So Sue does really all the seed starting just about. We have a little small hut, and there's she's plugging some in. We do use some drip irrigation. We have that skid steer loader there too, which is sure beats the shovel we had for the first 15 years. This is some early tomatoes going in with one different bed in between. We have homemade low tunnel. We'll come along there. Now here's a bed planted on 6-inch centers. And so there's a great book. It's called, and I'll read the whole thing here, How to Grow More Vegetables Than You Ever Thought Possible on Less Land Than You Can Imagine by John Jevons. And that's a great book for someone doing intensive backyard gardening where you don't have much room. They double dig. We kind of we subsoil with a tractor if we can. We also have a U-bar, which is 2 handles. I got 14-inch tines on it. And inside the low tunnel, I'll do that whole thing in the spring. You know, and it's really pretty nice. It'll be 30 degrees out, blowing wind, and I'll be in there with no shirt on. The tunnels have been amazing for us. Direct seeding of empty beds. I'm pulling a little pinpoint. I've got a pinpoint seeder in my hand. I'm not actually using it there. We have various little seeders. There's the pinpoint seeder is the upper left. Then there's a simple earthway. And here's a rake that we got from Johnny's Select Seed, I believe. And they have, you can get little pieces of plastic tubing you put on there, and you can mark rows with that, too. Each tine is 1.5 inches apart. That's a really nice tool to have. If you want 2 rows 18 inches apart, you can just pull her down the bed. And it's great for preparing bed. The pinpoint seeder up on the left needs pretty finely prepared bed. It can start dragging stuff real easy. We also have a mechanical transplanter. This is off the internet. I didn't get a good picture of it when I made this, but 2 people can sit on there. We put 1 seat on ours. Sue's really fast back there. She keeps going, speed up, speed up. I'm falling asleep because it clicks every time it gives a little squirt of water. So that, planting sweet potato slips, we planted cabbage, different things with this.
And
We do-
potatoes.
And potatoes. It has a different chain, just has a cup on it for potatoes. Change gears on it, you change spacing. It's a wonderful tool. But these have little neoprene grabbers. They come down, you set a plant in there, and it closes up, and it goes down, opens up, and you can adjust how much water is squirted right there, and it closes up right behind it.
Very simple.
Quite a nice tool. The first time we grew 3 acres of sweet potatoes, we plugged them all in by hand. It was 33,000 plants. And so it didn't take much of that work before we started looking at a transplanter. Here's some spring garden shots. There's a strawberry patch there. There's leeks and garlic and onions. Some more here. We'll try and get through this
Yeah,
stuff.
we better.
If anybody has, what's that, shout it out. We do a lot of succession planting. This year, and most years, to keep summer squash going, it has a lot of pests. Powdery mildew is bad. We probably plant 7 or 8 times in a year. And then to control squash bugs, which is important because I know insects are on everybody's mind in here if you're gardening at all. I've got a big propane torch. When that last planting's done, I go in there and just I flame it. And it doesn't take, I mean, you just pass that flame over a squash bug and it's dead. So this year, our last planting of squash, we don't have any squash bugs on it. And that's fairly incredible for deer. There's some winter squash. I think that's some popcorn, sweet potatoes, maybe on the other side. Late summer and fall, we're definitely believing you can redo spring planting all over in the fall. This year we almost weren't going to do it at all because of the weather, and then the weather broke in August. And so, boy, we got busy suddenly. And so we do have some turnips and beets coming on. There's a bed of carrots that are planted intensively. That's a pretty close-up shot, but you can see it goes on. Fall potatoes. And like I said, I'm going to whiz through a lot of this. Some cole crops, that's cabbage or cauliflower, more lettuces. Cultivation.
That's my tractor.
Yeah, this is the tractors that Sue uses. Actually, it's a joke. They're little toys. But I didn't know. I'm hoping that everybody was understanding. I couldn't resist putting that shot in there. Oh, I wish I was that small, could get in there and cultivate like that. And this is another type of cultivator that we use in our row crops. This is some of the last we had. Our stallion was approaching 20 years old there. And you can't hardly see it, but I have a net onion bag over his mouth so he's not trying to eat the whole time he's going through that corn. The Suffolk horses were just wonderful horses. We had as high as 13 at one time. A mare that we raised in our place holds the record for the most foals. And unfortunately, she had 17 babies in a row, 17 years in a row. Never missed a year. And 3 of them were sold as stud colts that were going to be gelded, and so we didn't register 3 of them. So only 14 of them were registered. She still holds the United States record. One of her daughters is in 2nd place, has 11 foals. So wonderful, wonderful horses. Those are some peas, I think. Some are cow peas. Here's some of our hoes, and it's a homemade push plow I made. That's the front forks off a little kid's 16-inch bicycle wheel, and the handles off of an old rototiller. I do a lot of welding and fixing and fabricating. We're a ways from town. You just can't go and run and get something all the time. A lot of times you can't find it in town anyway. The D-hose, we really like those scuffle hose. Now, these are really well made. I think those are Swiss made. They stay sharp. You can get a lot of work done. And then the other one, we call it Elliott. Elliott Coleman from up in Maine designed the collinear hoe there. And collinear means that blade is right in the same line as your handle, whereas most hoes have that crooked neck and like that. And that hoe, you use both thumbs up. You're not out there, back bent over hoeing. You're like this, and you're just scraping along. And so it's after your bed preparation and your things are coming up, you got to do close work. You only need to scratch the soil really shallow. If you scratch it deeper, guess what happens? Way more weeds germinate. Light stimulates weeds to germinate. In fact, there are some places in Europe, they're cultivating at night with infrared because when they're turning soil, just a flash of light on that seed makes it germinate.
Yeah.
And it's pretty incredible. There's a lot of technologies. Finally, a lot of technologies are getting aimed at more ecological, sustainable.
Low-tech farming, and in fact, the Elliot Coleman that we mentioned, we have
A couple books on
couple
there.
books
Yeah.
by him. He's a farmer in Maine, came after the Nearings, actually.
Bought
And
land
he's-
from the Nearings, actually. Yeah.
And he's developed some, really nicely designed
Yeah, great
small
tools.
farming
Great tools. He's a sharp guy.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he has 2 great books, more than that actually, that we recommend.
His books have been big sellers too, and it's really helped him out. That's, as far as making a living.
Yeah, we're not published yet. No.
Irrigation, without it this year, we would have been dead in the water. I mean, it would have been terrible. We use drip irrigation, and we also have some 3-inch aluminum pipe that is, we have a 40 horsepower Kubota tractor that I was disking the buckwheat in earlier. It's in the background there. And so we have a big pump that does that. This year, we sucked one pond just dry with the sprinkler irrigation. And the other pond, we had just the drip going from. And we had to actually stop irrigating some crops. We just didn't have the water this year. And the stuff that was going on drip, though, we had we got a third of that pond left now. And it's gone on a month and a half, 2 months after, that. So the drip uses so much less water. It's really worth using. We've turned on several of our gardening friends to that. There's more shots of.
And it
things
can
we've
be
grown.
installed quite reasonably, the drip systems, and it can be adapted to a very small garden.
It's on our resource list here. Morgan County Seeds, we found some of the best prices, and they're up in Missouri. They're not too far away, so the shipping isn't quite as high. Shipping's getting to be quite a expense. So we have one high tunnel, permanent installation. That's a 30 by 96. And then we have our homemade low tunnel on a PVC pipe. At this time, I don't think we had roll-up sides on it. I've redesigned it, so now we have roll-up sides, and that makes quite a difference trying
In
to
the heat.
carry things into the season.
There you go. Wow.
There's the high tunnel. It has roll-up sides to begin with. I wouldn't buy another one quite like this. This is important. I would buy one what they call a Gothic shape. And it has straight walls and then goes up and has more of a little peak on it. I've spent several nights knocking snow off this thing. And also, the drip edge, when you roll it up, is right on the edge of your first bed. And so I did a whole gutter system on it, and it was a pain, and I would probably buy a little different design. This was early when these started getting popular. There's some early crops in there. Those tomatoes in the center were planted in March, and they actually went all the way till frost.
February.
That was pretty amazing. We'd had a high wind, and those are carrots there, and you can see how they were blown over, and the peas are kind of blown over, and there was pole beans on the other side. This is tomatoes. We had earlier crops in the 3 other beds, and then the tomatoes went on. And this is, Alan, don't look at this because you won't be interested, but no. This is a T-trellis that we make. We actually have welded on scrap pieces of metal onto a small piece of pipe that just sits on top of a T-post. And then we put corral panels or hog wire, woven wire, on top of that. Before these tomatoes fell over, they were starting to hit the ceiling up there at 10 feet tall, and then they fell over, and they didn't collapse back against the main plant. They were hanging down out further. This is cherries on that side, and this is a hybrid. This is a hybrid tomato called Estiva. The Estiva that year, we averaged 26 pounds a plant. And that's pretty dang good. It went on forever. We were picking tomatoes right next to the ground when it frosted. They had gone all the way up, over, and back down.
Through November.
Yeah, there they are there. See, I'd just been picking some, and I thought, I should take a picture of this. And there's kind of the T-post up there, you can see. And we really do like that. Inside the low tunnel, when we were going to the river market, gosh, we wanted, it starts in May. Well, unlike some of these farmers who magically come up with watermelon in May at the river market. We were growing all our own stuff. So that was early carrots, early potatoes, early beets, once again, beets and carrots. Here's an earlier one. We tried a different bed format. And here, when it started getting hot, we used to have to take the plastic off. Now our low tunnels, we can roll up the sides. And there's some other planted pole crops and onions. Once again, more of these. Pest control, that's a big subject.
Constant.
Yeah, and that's just, this is not really saying how we're controlling it. It's a few pictures of them. Oh, there's another pest. We had never dealt with a wild hog until, I came in 72, and in 99 or year 2000, suddenly all our stuff started disappearing. And I mean, we had some heirloom corn, suddenly it was all gone.
Edamame, valuable
Yeah, edamame
crops.
soybeans, we had let go to seed. The seed is very expensive. Well, I don't know if you know how hard a soybean is when it's, and I heard him one night out there, and I go, what is that sound? And he was eating edamame seed like it was candy, just crunching it up. So I had to shoot him. I set a trap. I didn't trap him, but I stuck out there, and he weighed about 600 pounds. It actually might have been a state record, but I guess we weren't into doing that. We tried to make sausage out of him. It wasn't bad at first. It kept getting stronger and stronger in the freezer. So the sows are really good. We have had to deal with that. Local hunt camp let 2 loads of hogs go, 22 hogs each time, 20, 25 hogs. And so this year we haven't been bothered with any. Last year I killed 5 and my neighbor killed 20. Now, for the last couple years, we have what's called a 3D deer fence. And this is our other problem. We're putting all these minerals on the land and building this land up, and you grow a winter cover crop, and you got rye out there this tall, it's just green as can be, and oh my gosh, the deer, we'd have 50 deer on it. And they were just ruining our ground. In freezing, thawing winter, they're out there just plunking around, packing it, and just tearing it up. They'd eat it down to the ground sometimes. So, and you couldn't shoot all of them, and we drive them off a lot. We got a great Pyrenees who did a pretty good job, but they get used to her. She would run out so far, and they'd all stand in the woods and watch her. And then when she came back to the house, they just come right back out again. So, and this fence, for the first time, failed us this year in late June when it was so dry, we didn't have a good ground in the system. And we had about 20, 25 deer all around us, and I'd shine a light out there at night, and they're grazing right next to the fence. Okay, those were trained deer, but when it got dry and there wasn't anything to eat, they'd start moving, and if they went through that fence once, it's 3 foot high on the outside, or 34 inches, one strand that we bait, and that's it's a poly wire that's got little fine wires in it, and then it's 48, 32, and 16 on the inside. And so when they have that, they call it a 3D fence, they tend not to jump things when there's depth to them. And so they come up, and then every 50 to 100 feet, you have a little bait cap on there. And boy, their nose is one of the most sensitive parts of them. Their nose or their ears, their hair is hollow. They can sometimes crawl through electric fence, and if they don't push against it hard. So this has worked well until this summer. And then when they got on the inside, it wasn't the same effect. They could jump out easier. So it was only about 3 deer this year. We really didn't get damaged bad by them, but it made me extremely nervous, and I was out there every night with the dogs walking around. And then here's another problem sometimes. That was an ice storm that totally coated us. Large variety, especially vegetables, peppers, Zephyr squash. We kind of became known for that at the market. We grew Zephyr squash actually for 10 years at the market, and no other grower grew it while we were there. And I just couldn't believe it. We had people come just for our Zephyr squash, and nobody else ever caught on. I think they've caught on by now.
It's kind of the drug dealer approach, where if they taste it, they'll want it, and they'll want more.
Yeah.
It worked quite often.
You were giving out free samples of Zephyr? Okay, here's just some crops. And,
Others.
yeah, this is an heirloom butternut we grow. The biggest one was 20 pounds. The vines actually, we grew it this year, and I put corn on both sides of it, some field corn, because it spread 35 feet out to each side. But last year, on a 125-foot row, We picked over 1,000 pounds of squash. I mean, it was just incredible. And the restaurants really like it. Probably the individuals don't like it so much, but the restaurants, they're going to make a big butternut soup. A lot less work. There's a nice little head of broccoli there that Sue's squinting at. That's all garlic in the back of the pickup. You can't see it too well. Here's digging sweet potatoes. We do have a tractor-powered digger. It leaves them on top of the ground, and then we have to go through and pick them up. There's our little mighty shovel. And Big Red, that truck we bought when we first came, it's still used on farm, no longer roadworthy. And there's Sue in there in the packing shed and washing some lettuce and greens. And she's just having a great time sorting those beans, it looks like. And our outside sink and some of the more packing room stuff. More packing room stuff. We have a potato washer. We don't grow as many potatoes as we did.
Although those are turnips.
Those are turnips there, yeah. We definitely wash beets and turnips and everything in here. The first part is brushes and water spraying on it. Then it goes out to a sorting table, a roller table. And the last piece down there is actually a potato grater. It grades it into 3 sizes. It's an ancient piece of machinery. It was hand cranked when it was first done. And that had to be a heck of a job. So we're getting to, when we went to the farmer's market, some of the early years there. We were I think the first certified organic grower there. This is early morning setup. This is some of our last years there. We had pretty nice setup. We'll run through a few pictures here. Some of you people are former customers. Thank you. Out here we recognize several faces and people and said hello. And so you've seen all this already. We would do things, we'd grow a lot of variety. So there's 3 colors of carrots there. We'd grow 3 or 4 colors of carrots. Let's see, there is a point here. There's multi-colors of potatoes, and same with beets. We do several. We really like doing all the different varieties and really quite a display. That was probably the most fun of all our marketing we've done, is going to the farmer's market. And if anyone's thinking of growing in here, it is a great way to get in a market. It's just a wonderful, wonderful thing when
Even if it's
really have
excess garden.
Yeah. Now Sue now to the restaurants, and she does all our marketing. But we were both strong marketers at the farmer's market. But
Speaking
without
of the
Sue's marketing, we probably wouldn't be anywhere right now. So Online Buyers Club, these are some of the pictures that we use.
Which we have from the Arkansas locally grown online market. These are free, hot off the press.
Some local
Gives a lot of
resources.
resources of farms and
There's a beautiful
urban
little booklet.
gardens and,
Urban gardening,
restaurants
yeah.
that buy local, and there
So
are a
make
lot
sure and
of
pick
them.
one of those up. Here's our employees. Ralph is gone now. He was the greediest dog we ever knew. I saw him ride a hog down the hill on the hog's back, biting his butt. He'd see a skunk out in the field, he'd go and just run right over that skunk and then shake his head and turn around and kill it. Few dogs will hit a skunk twice. So anyway, that's daughter Rose and one of her friends who helped us. That's still an early morning picture, and we always had some early bird customers there wanting to get those first tomatoes. And there we are, some of our setup there. Food is power. Are you in control of yours? That's the windmill we have. We have a water pumping windmill, pumps it up into a 2,000-gallon tank that's in the little rocket ship building there. It's gravity flow to the house. We now have a pressure pump under the house. We had this, though, when we had no electricity, so we just had 8 pounds of water pressure. Now we have, we're electric now. But we still pump with that, and so when the electric does go out, we still have running water, and we have a wood stove. So we had 2 weeks without electricity at one ice storm. The care of the earth is our most ancient and most worthy, and after all, our most pleasing responsibility. To cherish what remains of it and to foster its renewal is our only hope. Good old Wendell Berry. And there's a view out our bedroom window, which is very nice, except we're seeing all the work that's not done all the time. And there we go. Yeah, I like that one. There's another crop of buckwheat here.
We've been blessed with
yeah, we've
rainbows
been really blessed.
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
Oh,
Ah, wow.
oh my.
And I thought I went fast.
I didn't.
And we can talk afterwards. If you-
Yeah, if anyone wants to come up,
Yeah, go ahead.
or is there another event right here?
There will be another event, that's why I've got to do that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
We can go outside.
Okay, there is a question here.
I do have a question. I'm planting a garden at our local school, and I'm wondering, we're just next week planting, and do you have any advice on what to plant right now?
Plant right now, spinach. A lot of the Asian greens are very cold hardy.
Lettuce, winter
You know, for
lettuce.
down here, see, we're about 2 weeks different than you guys are 2 weeks later than us or earlier. You know, anyway, we're at 1,600 feet elevation in the Ozarks.
You're going to get a frost in about 2 weeks. More.
Yeah, about 2 weeks earlier. Yeah, and so I'm not quite sure what would go. I know we have beets right now that are just this big, and turnips definitely. Haikuri turnips, it's a Japanese turnip. They're 28 days or 35 days. They're pretty quick.
But some things will winter
But a lot of greens
especially
and,
if you put 'em
and
in
spinach. The other thing, we talked to someone at the get-together last night who said, you know, last year my son put up a little hoop house in our backyard. It was only 10, 12 feet long, you know, used PVC and covered it, and they had lettuce all winter. And so that tiny
So
bit of protection
doable. Really is.
that really, I mean, we've had lettuce survive 11 degrees below zero outside, 4 degrees below zero inside a tunnel. But there was something about not having that desiccating wind and everything on it. It's incredible. So that's always a thought. And the row cover also will, you know, give you some protection. It depends how much you're there to monitor, because the tunnels will get hot really fast. So, and if it's at a school, there might not be somebody there, you know, at every time you need to do that.
What else?
Yes, Sam?
Last question.
I was wondering how you guys choose the things that you. Oh, I'm sorry. How do you choose the things that you grow? Because, like you were saying, for 10 years you grew Zephyr squash and no one else did. But now you see other growers because there's more small farms.
Yeah.
And so there's more the same, like more things are being grown. But you guys seem to stay kind of ahead of growing things that other people aren't growing. So I was wondering how you choose.
Well, talking to other growers,
Reading the
seed
catalogs.
I did, Johnny's Selected Seeds in Albion, Maine. Usually when they say something tastes good, it tastes good. You know, and that's, as far as dealing with restaurants, you want to bring quality product, and at farmers markets. You want things to taste good, look good, and it takes a big effort to do that, but it will pay off in longevity of your market.
But that's not to say that we, you know, in the dead of winter, you're in the house, it's nice and cozy, and you get all the catalogs out, and of course the descriptions all sound great.
Yeah,
So
they're always all great.
invariably, we go, okay, we're only going to grow 6 varieties of tomatoes.
Yeah.
Well,
So we
guess
plant
what?
25.
Yeah. And maybe half are good. So it's a constant learning
Yeah,
experience
yeah.
as far as
It's a lot of
what
trial and
works.
error.
And something
And
might work one year.
Like I said,
and
there are
not
so many
next.
variables. One of my gardening friends up there, they just put in a big garden for themselves, but he said, the variables. He said, it's like trying to count the stars in the sky. And you finally get it done and you learn out a whole bunch of them are galaxies.
Yeah.
Okay. Y'all, the Noopers are going to be here to continue talking. I want to thank you guys so much, and really appreciate it.